Yeah, new guys coming to you live. You could bet this like Jerome. New guys are men of steel. Best coverage in the league. Prime Reavers on the field. Don't know better ask. Do you nick the hype is real? Gurus with the knowledge. You can check the mass appeal. They gon' turn your fantasies into dollar bills. Making dynasties from drafts like the Spurs when they build. Want the bragging rights and titles at your work. Let the new guys serve the wisdom to you first. I ain't advertising, just kicking facts. They turn average Joes to Drakes cause they winning back to backs. So sit back, relax, all ears when they speak. And rain on competition with anything they leak. Make leagues joy gray like Ramsey did Reek. Passing off the mic, I'm out here, peace.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks again for joining us one more time. And Sean, thanks again for that phenomenal theme song. It's the most fire thing anyone's going to hear on this podcast. So we're going to be doing something a little different today. We thought it would be fun to discuss the divisions and go back to our week 1 predictions and see at this point, the midway point of the season, how accurate we were and how accurate we were not. Mostly not. But before we do that, we're just going to recap last night's game a little bit. For those of you that missed it, Seattle beat Arizona. Adrian Peterson got over 20 carries and under 30 yards, so he was bottled up most of the game. Short week, over 30 carries last week, so it's hard to be effective when the defense is focusing on that. Larry Fitzgerald had, I believe, 10 receptions, broke 100 yards, so he did his thing. Some of the best hands in the NFL. Jimmy Graham, 2 touchdowns. But Seattle, as expected, was not able to run the ball at all. 5 sacks, ton of penalties. They need to work some things out on the offensive line. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Nick?
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of Adrian Peterson this year. It's kind of weird. Every other week he either has 25 points or 2.
He's been hit or miss all year.
Yeah, and he has already like 5 fumbles or something on the year. I don't know, some crazy number.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you just most likely lost Zeke, so you're kind of stuck starting him.
Yeah.
But that's not terrible. You're stuck starting Adrian Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my! So
weeks you go off.
Every other week you're getting 20 points. Oh my God. First world problems to the max. But yeah, so that's my brief synopsis of last night's game. Did you have anything you wanted to add? One big catch by Doug Baldwin. Wilson scrambled for over 30 yards.
I thought Seattle was going to dominate a lot more. I kind of thought they were maybe the best team in the NFC besides the Eagles, but they didn't really show anything yesterday.
Yeah, no, they keep having all these issues running the ball, and last night with penalties. So hopefully they can address that. They'll have a long break before their next game because they played last night. So I believe they'll have like 10 days before they play again. So hopefully that's enough for Seattle to work out their issues. But that puts them at 6-3, half a game.
And they lost Richard Sherman too.
Yes. Oh yes. Good point. They lost their best corner, Richard Sherman, for the year. I believe it was an Achilles injury. I think he ruptured his Achilles. So he's done for the year. So their defense takes a hit. They'll probably play a little less conservative because that's a significant hit on their defense. They're not going to ball control and rely on their defense. They'll probably have to put up more points. So that might help Russell Wilson. But other than the hit to the defense, it's not a significant impact on their offense. But the win puts them at 6-3, half a game behind the Rams, who haven't played this week yet in the NFC West, and it pushes Arizona further back, down to 4-5. And without Carson Palmer and with that divisional loss, I don't want to say they're done, but the Rams are off to a great start. Seattle's still playing relatively well, and Arizona's below 500, so I'd say at this point they shouldn't rush David Johnson back. They should probably just focus on their future next year. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. There's not really good use to put him back out there for 1 or 2 games. Might as well give him the off season, figure out your quarterback situation for next year, and basically, I don't know, rebuild that offense.
Mhm.
Now that Larry Fitz is getting up there in age too.
Yeah, he's probably only got 1 or 2 more years. Him and Palmer, too, are both probably going to be out within the next couple. Anyways, I pulled up our week 1 predictions, and before we get into the specific divisions, I figured we'd go with the awards to start off. So, at the start of this, you predicted the Super Bowl to be the Patriots versus the Packers.
Yeah, that's not looking too hot right now.
And I had the
But yours is a lot worse.
Mine's a lot worse. I had the Steelers versus the Giants.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking, I guess. We had high hopes, and they were valid at the time, but
They were, but now you're looking at the 3rd overall pick.
hopefully better, to be honest. Keep McAdoo so we throw this game to San Fran. Aim for the number 1 pick. Aspirations, goals.
Could happen.
Yeah. Anyways, if you had to guess now, what would you say the Super Bowl is going to be?
I would probably say Eagles definitely in the NFC. And in the AFC, I'd probably still go with the Patriots, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs are a close option, but I don't know. I just think the Patriots have more experience in these situations, and they would win if it came to an AFC Championship game or something.
Okay. That's valid. I agree it's between Kansas City and the Patriots in the AFC. I think it would be Kansas City just because they have a better defense. They're on their bye right now, so they'll be well rested the rest of the way because they had a late bye. They both have really clicking offenses, but Kansas City's got the better defense. I think the Patriots lost Hightower for the year, I want to say.
Yeah, they did last week.
Yeah, and in the NFC, I don't think Philly's definitely a shoo-in. I'd say, yes, it's probably Philly, but New England's on a 6-game win streak. Their defense looks legit, and their offense is well-rounded with
Who are you talking about?
Kamara.
Who did you say?
New Orleans. I think I said New England
okay,
on
yeah,
accident.
you said New England.
I meant the Saints. So I'm not going to rule out Drew Brees and the Saints. I'd say, yes, it's probably either Philly, but it could be them. The Rams, I know they're 6-2, but I just think they're too young. I don't think they're quite ready for that. It looks like they'll, at the very least, be a wild card, but possibly take the division. But I think it's either Philly or the Saints in the NFC.
Okay.
MVP, I had Tom Brady. You had Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, if he played in the season, would be a possibility, but yeah, at this point now.
Yeah.
So
Brady's still playing. I'd say it's more likely going to be Carson Wentz now. Who knows what Brady has in store for the second half, but Carson Wentz has been lights out. He ripped Denver apart last week, so barring an injury, I'd say the MVP is probably going to be Carson Wentz, potentially Le'Veon Bell, if he keeps playing out of his mind, or Melvin Gordon. Oh, not Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley. But I'm going to go with Wentz. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say Wentz too. Could have been Deshaun Watson.
Could have been Deshaun
weeks
Watson.
ago,
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, I'd say it's going to be Wentz. I don't really see anyone putting up that much competition.
No one else? Okay. So we agree there. It's probably Wentz. Defensive Player of the Year, you had Joey Bosa, who could be. I had J.J. Watt, who can't be.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Unfortunately.
I mean, Joey Bosa's having a good season. You're not seeing him too much in the headlines, though. So, I don't really know at this point who I'd have as Defensive Player of the Year. Do you have anyone in mind?
No one specific. I mean, anyone from Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Anyone from that defense? I don't think there's any one defensive player that's just standing out, going above and beyond. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. There's not anyone to me.
there's no one. Roads closed. Like there's a few shutdown corners, but there's no one anywhere on the defensive end that's like head and shoulders above the rest, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah.
Offensive Rookie of the Year. I had Leonard Fournette, and I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna stick with that. And
that's
you,
realistic.
yeah, and you had Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, it's not happening. He's having a good season, not a bad one.
Mhm.
People thought he'd do more.
Yeah.
He's doing it in the passing game, just not really the running game.
Yeah,
So,
he's been consistent in PPR. Could be utilized a little more since Jonathan Stewart fumbled twice last week. And Carolina, just for note, has their bye next week, so plan accordingly. But yeah, probably not going to be the Rookie of the Year. Do you think it's going to be Fournette, or did you have someone else in mind?
again, Deshaun Watson, but that's not gonna happen. So I'm gonna go with Kareem Hunt.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
But it's still close with him and Fournette. I just say Hunt, I think, has maybe 150 more rushing yards on the season so far. He didn't miss a game, so I would give it to him, but it's close.
Yeah, and Hunt's been spiraling downward. They just have to utilize him more. Two of their losses were games where Kareem Hunt had under 10 carries.
Yeah, they're giving like Tyreek Hill a lot of carries too.
Which I understand, he's an explosive player, but eventually defenses are going to pick up on what you're doing. And if you have such an explosive rookie, use Hill to spread the defense and Hunt to run the ball. And I get mixing and matching and getting Hill more touches, but take them away from somewhere else.
Yeah, I got you.
It could be Hunt, but the last few weeks have been rough sledding, and hopefully they're using this bye week to adjust their offensive scheme. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I had Hassan Reddick. He has moved around on Arizona's line a bit, but he's still playing, which half our predictions are not, so that's fine, but I don't think he'll be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And you had Malik Hooker.
I did. He was balling out when he played. He played, I think, 5 games this year, and he was tied for the league in interceptions with 3. So he was definitely doing good, and I think he was actually the Defensive Rookie of the Year front runner at the time. But obviously he went down, so that's not happening. So who do I think will win Defensive Rookie of the Year? You go first, actually. I want to see what you say.
If Garrett played the whole year, potentially could have been him, but I don't know.
I'm gonna go with Marshawn Lattimore, cornerback for the Saints.
Okay.
He's kind of like retooled that secondary, and he's actually like doing really good this year. So
that
I think
secondary's
he's
been pretty shut down the last 5-6
had a pretty
weeks.
big impact on him.
Do you want to get into our playoff predictions that we had, or do you want to go what's called division by division?
Yeah, we can just go division by division.
Alright, so let me get to the top of my notes. Alright, in the AFC East, it looks like it's a 2-horse race. The Bills are currently 1 game behind New England, who's at 6-2. You had the Patriots making the playoffs and no one else from that division, as did I. Do you think there's any chance that Buffalo either takes the division or the wild card? Well, it looks like we lost Nick.
Oh, my bad. Phone fell. That would not have been good.
No problem. So it looks like the Patriots are a game up on the Bills. New England was the only team in the AFC East that either of us had making the playoffs.
Okay.
Miami's at 4-4 right now, and the Bills have significantly outdone what we thought they would. You had them going 5-11, and I had them at 6-10, and they've already got 5 wins. Any chance Buffalo takes the AFC East?
I think slim, just because.
It's the Patriots.
Again, I talked about it last week. I don't really know what to make of Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing good, and then they got blown out by the Jets. So
Yeah.
I think they kind of just proved what they are.
Mm-hmm. They do get Charles Clay back and Kelvin Benjamin this week, most likely playing. So that could open up the offense a little. I believe Zay Jones is missing this week. But yeah, it's probably the Patriots division. Wild card, maybe. I see it going elsewhere, which we'll get into. But Buffalo could potentially, if they keep playing as well as they have for the most part, get in as a wild card. In the AFC North, we both had the Steelers taking the division at 11-5, and we both had Baltimore next at 8-8. So far, that looks to be exactly what we thought.
Yeah, that's no surprises there.
The Browns are 0-8, which is a little bit of a surprise. I thought they'd get a couple wins.
I thought they'd have at least like 3 wins this year, maybe 4. Probably like 3.
I picked them at 5. You initially had them at 4.
Okay.
I think that division is Pittsburgh's. Baltimore just has no offense. Cincinnati looked lost last week. I was actually at the game. AJ Green looked like an MMA fighter.
Yeah, he choked him out.
Yeah. Shots to the head.
I don't know what he was trying to do there. The guy had a helmet on.
Yeah, break his knuckles. We don't support violence here, but it was fun to see live. Anyways, that's the Patriots division. I feel like that's it. Martavis Bryant is playing this week, so who do you think will be third fiddle behind Brown and Bell? Do you think it's definitely Juju Smith-Schuster, or you think they sort of give them both a look?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Juju, and just based on one thing, the Colts are known to give up the big play, and that's exactly what Juju excels at, so
okay.
I would not be shocked if he has an 80-yard touchdown. In fact, I'm expecting it. I'm just preparing for it. I'm prepared for us to be down 7-0 going in, just knowing there's going to be an 80-yard touchdown.
I have Steelers across the board in my daily plays. So if you do daily betting, good play, because the Colts defense is, injured too. Beyond being trash, they lost a couple people last week, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good defense to start the season,
yeah.
And now we're just missing all of our guys.
Mm-hmm.
Our starting defensive end, Henry Anderson, is out for the season with a throat fracture or something. I don't know, some made-up injury that I can't even come up with.
Yeah.
And Vontae Davis, we just cut him because he was having season-ending surgery, and he was like our one good player. So I don't know, it's a mess.
I believe that might be breaking news, cutting him. That was recent. That was within the hour.
Yeah,
so we hope you heard that here first.
I don't know. His contract was over at the end of the season, and I kind of knew they weren't going to re-sign him because they're trying to build a younger team. But I don't know. A few years ago, he was a top corner in the league, so it was kind of shocking to see us just get rid of him like that.
Mm-hmm. We'll move on to the AFC South, where I had the Colts at 10-6 and the Jags at 4-12. So that goes to show the AFC South has completely flip-flopped.
Yeah.
And you had the Jags winning 5 games, so you were closer than I, because they currently have 5 wins. And you also had the Colts winning the division. So really the only thing we hit on was Tennessee being in contention and Houston being about 500. Houston's currently 3-5. Jacksonville and Tennessee are tied at 5-3. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think Jacksonville will take the division. I think they have a better defense. I think Mariota's better than Bortles, but Fournette really seems borderline unstoppable. And their plus-minus differential, Tennessee's -12, Jacksonville's +89. So I just think eventually that'll even out. And although they're tied right now, I think Jacksonville will take the division.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville wins it too. They just have a much better defense, and Tennessee might have a better offense, but not by too much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Jacksonville probably has the best defense in the league, or top 2 or 3. So I'm gonna go with them too. I don't think they'll make a run this year or anything in the playoffs, but I do think they'll win that division.
Well, I know Saxonville down here, they're all excited.
Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's a legit nickname right now. Just a couple things to note. Delaney Walker is questionable, probably going to play though. He usually plays through it. Tennessee got Corey Davis back last week, and he had over 70%, I think 75% of routes run. So that should increase from there. He should be all systems go this week. And on Jacksonville's side, Fournette will play. He's back from his 1-game absence. D.D. Westbrook did not take the field last week. I'm hoping he does this week just because I really liked what I saw in the preseason. But we'll see about that. Any notes you wanted to touch on in the AFC South?
I don't know. Yeah, back to the Colts Steelers game. If you have any Steelers, start them in fantasy. But besides that, no, not really.
Okay. All right, and the last of the AFC, we're going to hit the AFC West, where currently Kansas City has the lead with a record of 6-3. Oakland is behind them, but they're below 500 at 4-5, which is very different also from what we had. We both had the Raiders taking the division. You had them at 11-5. I had them also at 11-5. I had the Broncos at 9-7 second. You had the Chargers at 9-7, and you actually had the Chargers making the playoffs, which I had the Broncos making the playoffs. So that's all probably not happening. It looks like it's Kansas City's division, but do you hold hope for any of these other teams to turn it around, either Oakland or the Chargers or Denver?
I think Oakland can make a late season run. But I don't know about playoffs. I do think they get some wins. Yeah, might. I don't really see Denver doing anything. You know, they're known for their defense, and it just got torn up for 40 points last week. So I think they're a lost cause this year.
Yeah, their defense has been a little subpar for their standards.
Yeah.
Which it's not entirely on them. Their offense is abysmal. You know, eventually defense will get tired. They get torn up last week. I don't know. Marshawn Lynch had 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, good game.
So, you know, hopefully he'll turn it around if you're a Lynch owner. They are on a bye this week, so you'll have to wait one more week, but that was a nice sight to see if you own Marshawn Lynch. I think Oakland, if anyone were to turn it around in the second half, I think it would be Oakland, but I think it's Kansas City's division. I don't think it's that close. They just seem to be clicking on all cylinders. So I think they're going to take it in the AFC West.
Okay.
So we're going to head to the NFC, and then after this, I guess we'll call it because it is Friday. So Nick has some college studying to do.
Yeah, of course.
And I have to get to the gym. I usually go to the gym after work, but we had this to do. So priorities. Exactly. Trying to get an MF scholarship. We don't curse here, so. All right. NFC East. Philly leads at 8-1. I don't think either of us saw that happening. You had them at 9-7.
Yeah, I did say not this year. I said next year they were going to be the best team in the division. I did say that on the first podcast, but I thought it happened next year, not this year.
I was way off with them. I had them at 7-9 and at the bottom of the division. They've made significant strides since last year, and it looks like they're the favorite in the entire NFC. So.
Yeah, maybe the NFL. So.
Yeah, if they lost out, they would be 500.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. So they're all but a lock to make the postseason at this point. Dallas trails them at 5-3. Zeke is most likely missing the next 6 weeks, which can be shortened. He has another appeal, I think, to December 1st.
Yeah, he might be able to play like week 14. I don't know. They still gotta do that though.
If you're in the playoffs, or most likely going to be, hold on to him. But if you're fighting to get in and you're a Zeke owner, what do you think you should do here?
Depends how many bench spots you have, but I'd hold on to him.
Okay.
Because if you do make it to the playoffs, then you know you're set because you might have him for a game or two. It all depends on that trial, but still.
If you're on the outside looking in right now, try to trade him to a contender.
Yeah, that's smart.
Someone that can hang on to him. This way you get the roster spot open, you get some value out of it, you can make your playoff push. But the same thing goes if you're a David Johnson owner. He just got his cast taken off. If you're fighting to get in, you might need the roster spot. But if you have 2 or 3 people in your league that are all but a lock, see what they give you for him. It's worth looking into. But yeah, Washington's about 500. I had them at 8-8. Dallas can make the wild card, get a wild card spot, but they're not going to beat out Philly for the NFC East. Any other notes? Dez probably is going to play this week.
Yeah, nothing with the Giants or Redskins, but I think Dallas will definitely make the playoffs. They'll be the wild card.
Okay.
I don't know how much they do in the playoffs, considering Philly will still be there. But if they were in any other division, I think they'd win. Just unfortunate circumstances with Philly being there too.
Yeah, I think they'll most likely take a wild card. You know, Detroit's 500 right now. Carolina, Seattle, the Rams, and New Orleans out of the NFC South and West. I could see the 2 teams I just mentioned in both those divisions taking the wild card if it's not Dallas. But I'd say Dallas is one of 3 potential teams to grab that wild card spot. On to the NFC North, it looks to be Minnesota's at 6-2. Sam Bradford's on IR, and Teddy Bridgewater is activated. For what it's worth.
Definitely interesting. Did they say when he'd be able to play in a game? Have they talked about that yet?
I think next week, but I could be wrong on that. I want to say week 11.
Okay.
But honestly, at 6-2, I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they've shown it doesn't really matter who they have at quarterback.
Yep, they rely on their defense, and they have great skill players that are apparently impervious to bad quarterback play.
So, yeah, I would just keep, I guess it's Case Keenum now, so I would just keep Keenum in. I mean, why not? You're hot right now, and I don't know, you might as well see where he takes you. If he starts to struggle a lot once you start to face these tougher teams, then you could try out Teddy, but for now, I would just keep Keenum in.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You and I both had Green Bay initially coming out of this division. They are currently 4-4, as is Detroit. And I don't think either team's going to make the playoffs. Detroit's defense has looked a little worse, to be honest, the last few weeks, but a lot better than expected overall compared to last year. And Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers has really shown very little signs of life on offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's their team.
Yeah.
I think everyone saw that coming once he went down.
He makes bad good, good great, and great Hall of Famers. So without him...
Did you practice that in the mirror?
I actually just came up with that just now. I'm dead serious on that.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I'm a TV personality waiting to happen. And I just have to wait for my hair to grow out. Anyways, yeah, so it looks like it's Minnesota's job. It's not all that close. Although Chicago is doing a lot better than people expected. They're 3-5, and it's not their year, but it is nice to see for their future. On to the NFC South. We have a bit of a tight race there.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest division.
Yep. The Saints are at 6-2. Carolina's at 6-3, and Atlanta, former Super Bowl team is an even 500 at 4-4. I initially had the Panthers and the Falcons both at 11-5 and making the playoffs. So Carolina still can. Atlanta, I don't think will, but the Saints probably will. So it does look like two teams can come out of the NFC South still. And you had Atlanta and Carolina also at 12-4 and 11-5 respectively, and had them both in the postseason. Any chance you think Atlanta figures it out?
So. They haven't really shown me anything this year. And, they have a good game and then they go and get smoked by who they was Miami. They lost in that game to them. So I don't really see anything from them. Carolina's doing around what I thought they were. Obviously, I thought they'd be a little better, but they seem pretty legit. I think they'll win the division, actually. But I do think it'll be close within a game with the Saints.
The biggest disappointment there, I'd say Atlanta being a 500 ball club is disappointing. But you could have kind of seen this coming with Shanahan leaving, and Matt Ryan, other than last year's, MVP year, really hasn't been great over the last 4. He's been a mediocre quarterback, and he's sort of reverted to the Matt Ryan of the olden days, of what we had expected of him entering the draft last year. Just mediocre quarterback play. So the biggest disappointment, though, I'd say would have to be Tampa. They were on Hard Knocks. Everyone had them above 500. We both predicted them at 9-7, and here we are with them sitting there with one of the worst defenses in football. Their quarterback is injured and has been playing poorly and through injury, and they're sitting there at 2-6. So I'd say that's been the biggest disappointment in the NFC South. If you have Kamara or Ingram, start both of them because they're both top 10 right now, and unlike Atlanta showing signs of turning it around, they're doing it every week and showing no signs of slowing down. So you feel great if you have both or either Saints running back. And Carolina, their top receiver is Devin Funchess now, so if you have him, you're playing him almost every week unless he draws a lockdown corner. And Greg
Unless you drop him for no reason.
Unless you drop him for no reason. Jake. Jake. Just one more thing to touch on there. Greg Olsen should be coming back really soon. So if he's out there on your waiver, go grab him, although he should be owned by now. Do you know when he's expected to play?
I'm not sure. I think he could return to practice next week, I want to say.
I think they're waiting till after next week. Next week's their bye.
Okay, so yeah, I'll probably wait until after that.
He'll probably play 2 weeks from now. So, but if you wait till next week's free agent period, someone's going to grab him before you. So go out and do that if you have that option. And the last division is the NFC West. I had the Seahawks at 12-4, followed by the Cardinals at 10-6, and I had both of them making playoffs. You had Seattle at 12-4 and Arizona at 8-8, just Seattle making the playoffs. And it looks like right now it's going to be either the Rams, Seattle, or both. The Rams leading 6-2, Seattle at 6-3, winning last night. And San Fran is the other team without a win right now at 0-9. Do you think San Fran gets their first win against the Giants this week?
I think they can, but I don't think they will.
You don't think they will?
I think the Giants hold on to get their second win of the season. I just think they're the better team.
I agree they're the better team, but I don't want that to happen now.
Yeah, tanking season, I got you.
Darnold shall be ours.
Wouldn't be a bad year to have the number 1 overall pick.
Right? It's like we planned it or something. I think McAdoo is out, Reese potentially, but they're going to wait for this toilet bowl of a year to finish out before that. Do you think the Rams hold on, or you think Seattle takes the West, NFC West?
I think the Rams actually take it.
Okay.
I don't know. Seattle's kind of shown me they're not consistent, especially, they beat the teams they shouldn't, and then they lose to the teams. And then they lose to the teams that they should be beating by a lot, or they always play a close game. So I think the Rams right now are just rolling, and they'll end up winning, not by a lot, maybe like a game, or maybe they tie, but whatever, the Rams have the tiebreaker or something like that. But I think the Rams are the division.
So unlike the Cleveland Cavaliers, who step up to the level of competition and then look past and lose to the underdogs, Jared Goff is just a bully. He absolutely bullies the underdogs, puts up insane numbers against the teams he should beat, and then continues to play well against the better teams. So, like you said, their defense is legit. Their offense is doing well, running mostly through Todd Gurley, but Robert Woods has been probably their best receiver, and they're getting, yards and first downs in the slot from Cooper Kupp. They still have Sammy Watkins too, so I think it'll be the Rams because, as you said, Seattle has shown weakness, but I think Seattle could potentially get the other wild card if it's not Dallas. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Back to Sammy Watkins. I don't know. He's not really doing much with the Rams. He's like a deep ball guy. One game, like you saw against the Giants, but I thought he'd definitely have a much bigger impact. But instead, it's Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp doing more of the work there. So I'm kind of shocked by that.
Yeah, I'm a bit shocked by that. I mean, Watkins still has value. He's still spreading the defense. So football-wise, he has value to their team. But yes, fantasy-wise, it has been a disappointing year for Sammy Watkins. I wouldn't drop him, but it hasn't been great. Use him if you need throughout your buys, but you don't feel great about playing Sammy Watkins. For Seattle, Paul Richardson did play last night. He only had the one reception for 43 yards. Better days will be ahead for Paul Richardson if they can figure out the O-line. And for Arizona, you don't feel great about anyone other than Peterson and Fitzgerald. So, anything else, Nick?
No, I think that's good.
All right, next week we'll get more into players and fantasy and stuff. We just thought this would be a fun change of pace. So good luck with your lineups. Oh, one last thing, and I know I did this last week, but just one last thing. I did have someone ask me a question, so I just wanted to touch on that. The person is in a non-PPR league and has Jarvis Landry and was offered Joe Mixon. And I told him it depends on your roster construction. I understand the appeal, but Mixon's been underperforming and underwhelming all year. I would personally stick with Jarvis Landry. Unless you have a ton of stacked receivers and are crippled at running back, and that's the best offer you got. But I would stick with Jarvis Landry, and I don't think it's that close.
Yeah, I agree with that. You don't really know what you have with Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
He's kind of inconsistent. But Jarvis Landry's been pretty solid.
Yeah, and the Bengals' O-line hasn't been great. And, Bernard and Hill are still there, at least. Mixon's averaging under 3 yards per carry, whereas Jarvis Landry is breaking reception records. So, I mean, even if they're only 7-8 yards each catch, targets equal volume, which equals production. So stick with the guy that's been doing it for the year. Anyways, on that note, we're going to go. Nick, enjoy your weekend, and good luck, everybody, with Week 10.